This Week with Bob Mueller on News 2.
This week,
the legislature passed guns and cars several years ago, and since that time, we have seen gun thefts increase almost tenfold.
guns stolen from cars, an epidemic in Nashville. Should gun owners face consequences for not properly securing their weapons? Democrats and Republicans are split on the answer.
It is frustrating, but even in your frustration, you still fight.
The federal government has determined the state of Tennessee underfunded historic Tennessee State University for decades to the tune of $2.1 billion. Will the university ever see this money?
I could see them giving them bits and pieces here and there just to stay, correct. But imagining them writing a $2.1 billion check, I absolutely do not think that that's going to happen.
Many doubt it.
For me to be in the midst of 2 mass shootings within 8 months is heartbreaking.
Gun violence in Nashville now being treated as a public health crisis.
He had in place a transition framework. I think the good news for him and for us is that Freddie O'Connell knows this city very well.
And Bill Purcell served as Nashville's 5th mayor of the metro form of government. Hear his insight into what lies ahead for Nashville's 10th mayor, Mayor-elect Freddie O'Connell. Hello again and welcome to another edition of This Week, the transition between outgoing Mayor John Cooper and Mayor-elect Freddie O'Connell. Tonight, a conversation with former Nashville Mayor Bill Purcell on the transition process. $2.1 billion, that is what the feds say the state owes TSU. Gun violence here in Nashville being treated as a public health crisis. We begin with a measure to crack down on gun owners whose weapons are stolen while left unsecured in a vehicle.
Last year, Tennessee saw over 5,000 reported cases of people stealing guns from cars. In Nashville, there were over 1,000.
The legislature passed guns and cars several years ago that allowed anybody to, drive around in their vehicle with their weapon. And since that time, we have seen gun thefts increase almost tenfold.
Democratic Senator Jeff Yarborough will be reviving a bill to create punishments for people who don't safely store their guns. It died in Senate Judiciary Committee this year.
What we can't do is just let members on these committees decide that doing nothing is okay.
The idea is one Democrats say is a no-brainer, and it actually has some Republican backing. Back in April, House Republican Caucus Chairman Jeremy Faison said he'd work on the idea with Democrats. But not every Republican, particularly in the Senate, is on board.
Any gun owner should be responsible. They should be responsible for that weapon, but not to the point where we blame them for someone committing a crime with the gun that they stole from them.
Hohenwald Republican Senator Joey Hensley isn't in the Judiciary Committee, but last year, most of it shared his views, saying the bill was a Second Amendment violation for Tennesseans.
When they get where they're going, it's a gun-free zone, and they can't take the gun into the facility with them, so they're forced to leave the weapon in their car.
Yarborough bit back on that.
This is actually ridiculous, this notion that we're going to go back in time to like medieval days when literally everyone went armed everywhere all the time.
The next time the bill can come up is during regular session in January.
Dozens of people die in Nashville every year as a result of gun violence. The Metro Public Health Department treats the issue like a public health crisis. At a health department town hall this week, community members had their say on the issue. Here's News 2's Mai Owens.
It's fitting this town hall is happening inside a church.
Lee Chapel welcomes you to our home as we come together to address the pressing issue of violence as a public health crisis.
Where so many come and listen, this is no different.
For me to be in the midst of 2 mass shootings within 8 months is heartbreaking.
It's the personal stories that many share.
June 9, 2012.
And the common goal for change.
My 15-year-old son came in and he said, "Mama, Antoine's been shot." My ex-husband says, "No, well, just do whatever you can to help him." The nurse said, "No, let's stop." She said, "He's gone."
Her son, Antoine Covington Jr., was shot and killed while leaving a birthday party in Antioch tonight.
I got in this fight because of what happened with my son, but this fight started a long time ago because I started seeing the change in Nashville.
Over the last 20 years, the Metro Public Health Department has been treating violence throughout the city like an infectious disease.
This underscores the critical need for us to view violence through the lens of public health, to understand its far-reaching implications, and to collaboratively forge solutions that will lead us to a safer, healthier Nashville.
But tonight, it was the tough questions that brought hard-to-realize answers.
First question, what does violence cost?
The Covenant School, it costs 3 lives and the innocence of over 230 children. I think it costs us all just the essence of, who we are, of our humanity.
Not only across the city, but specifically North Nashville, where Metro Police are tracking change in crime.
And North Nashville is currently showing a 5% decrease in crime compared to the same time last year. Specifically, domestic violence, aggravated assaults are showing a commendable 13.9% decrease.
During the town hall, those who attended had the opportunity to ask questions, many of them focused on whether or not violence can truly end in the city.
Now to our This Week cover story. The federal government alleges the state of Tennessee's largest and only public HBCU has been underfunded by billions. We have 2 reports from State Capitol reporter Chris O'Brien and News 2's Miranda Whittington.
Yesterday, the Department of Education and the Department of Agriculture sent a letter to Governor Bill Lee saying the state has underfunded Tennessee State University by more than $2 billion in the last 30 years.
It is frustrating, but even in your frustration, you still fight. You still want people to do what's right. You still uphold the banner to keep fighting, to live another day. You never give up.
The move comes after a state report in 2021 found Tennessee underfunded the school by over $500 million. The governor then proposed an extra $250 million for the HBCU back in 2022. Then earlier this year, a scathing comptroller audit recommended the state consider removing TSU's leadership, in part because of alleged financial mismanagement. Which brings us to now, where Democrats say it's no surprise that the only public HBCU is facing a deficit.
You can't help but to believe it's based on race. And if you think about the time, how long this has gone on, there was a policy, a decision, something made years ago that was probably based on race.
Republicans say the move is clearly a political one.
The timing of this is obviously political. This is, we're an overwhelmingly Republican state. Obviously, the federal government is run by Democrats at the moment. There's some politics, I'm sure, that is being played as part of this.
Furthermore, Republicans say they don't expect to dish out more money, citing the fact that the state did its own analysis and came up with the governor's $250 million infusion years ago.
My gut is we didn't miss anything, but I will always make certain that let's double check. But I feel very confident we did the right thing at the right time and for the right reasons.
We have, in fact, recognized, and the General Assembly has recognized as well, the need to invest more heavily in TSU. We actually have invested $500 million in the last few years, $318 million last year, a historic investment. So we're happy to talk with whoever, the federal government or anyone, about how much we believe in TSU and how much we are committed to their future and to investing in the future.
The feds closed the letter by writing, the Departments of Education and Agriculture would welcome hosting a workshop to fully examine the funding data. In Nashville, Chris O'Brien.
Nice to meet you too.
Amber Tharp grew up learning about Tennessee State University through her grandfather.
So some of the stories that I heard from him and my grandma were about the sit-ins and the ways that they supported students that were participating in the sit-ins, bringing board games to the jail and food to the jail.
It was from him and others she learned of the university's importance.
TSU is a historical institution in Nashville. It's been really, really important for decades.
But for decades, it's been lacking money owed from the state. The U.S. Education Secretary recently sent a letter to Governor Bill Lee stating the state of Tennessee owes at least $2.1 billion in back pay to TSU.
Good to have the federal government weigh in and say, listen, we've done our research also, and we've discovered that
there is a funding inequity and has been for some time.
TSU alumni and State Representative Harold Love Jr., along with his father, have spent years fighting for the university to receive back pay from the state.
What would the residence halls look like if it had the adequate funding? What would all these institutions have been like if it had adequate funding?
Letters were sent to 15 other governors stating department data showed land-grant HBCUs were not receiving the amount of funding they are owed. When it comes to whether TSU will finally receive their money, that's something Tharp says sadly she has little faith in.
I could see them giving them bits and pieces here and there just to stay, correct. But imagining them writing a $2.1 billion check, I absolutely do not think that that's going to happen.
In Nashville, Miranda Whittington, News 2.
Stay with us. This week continues in a moment.